Over the last 2 months of summer, we've been making this journey together as a congregation. How do we experience God in creation? How is it that from the very beginning, God has been calling his people to meet him in the wilderness? And so we've been challenged as a congregation this summer to follow the example of Abraham, to get outside, to look up, to look around, to pay attention, and to experience God's presence in the wonders around us. And then the last part of that challenge was for us to be sharing what we are discovering. How is God touching our lives as we experience him in creation? And I know each week Eric and I have been hearing from people informally here at the church. Some people have been writing us emails. But on the last Sunday of August, the final service is going to be sharing, in this series, is going to be sharing some testimonies from people in the congregation. And if you would be interested in maybe sharing from the front, or even talking to Eric and I, we can come and, a 1-minute little video clip, maybe in your backyard or a place that means something special to you. We would love to include you in that service. How has God been speaking to you through creation this summer? And we're looking forward to that celebration as we come to the end of this series just in a couple of weeks. This series continues, and I think about my own life. How well am I paying attention? Sometimes I pay attention. Sometimes I don't. But when I'm paying attention, I'm trying to be present in the day, in the moment where God has placed me. Time and time again, I am surprised. I am surprised. This morning I was talking to one gentleman in the church, and he was talking about his cottage. He's got a home up near the valley, and out in the lawn one day, and he saw it looked like this old porcupine walking across the lawn. It had very white quills. And then he had to take a second look. It was a double take. It was an albino porcupine. How rare is that? Little wonders all the time around us. This past week, I came across this picture of the bees and the hummingbird eating together at the feeder. I don't know who was out with the camera when they took that picture, but all around us, there's just moments of just wow. God has made this world. He's put it together. God pays attention to the details. God pays attention to the small things and the little things. And so if God's been speaking to you this summer, maybe there's been a moment where you just have felt closer to God, or God has just kind of opened your eyes to something that you maybe taken for granted all your life, and all of a sudden you just had this moment where you're like, God, thank you. We want to hear about it. We want to encourage one another and to share. And so think about that if you'd like to be a part of that service at the end of the month. And even if you want us to read something, we would be happy to share that as a part of that service. So today we're talking about love from below. And throughout this series, we've been looking at the big grand picture. God in the universe and in the stars and the galaxies. God showing himself through the wind and the rain and the power of the light of the sun. God in the big picture. And today we're going to get really, really tiny. We're going to go really, really small. And I hope that for the kids and for all of us here, you might enjoy this message. It's going to be a little different than the other ones we've been sharing. But we're going to look at some things that God has really spoken to me personally. So this is a bit of my own testimony of experiencing God in creation. When I was a little boy, probably in grade 4 or 5, I started watching a television show on CBC. Because kids, there was a time when most of us only had one channel or 2 channels. And for me, we had CBC television and CTV growing up on Prince Edward Island. But there was this television show after school. It was called Wonder Why. And the host, his name was Bob McDonald. And I still listen to Bob on CBC Radio. He has a show called Quirks and Quarks. And some of you are fans, I know, of Quirks and Quarks. And so, yeah, I love listening to talk radio, and CBC Radio is something I often listen to. And a number of years ago, I was listening, and I think it was around 2016, there was some incredible discoveries being made around something called forest slime mold. And in fact, going back to even 2010, there's been a lot of papers published about forest slime mold. Now, our daughter, Ava, who's here, by the way, Ava and Emma were baptized this past week, Canoe Cove Christian Camp. And we had a quick trip over to PEI, big family reunion, but the highlight was definitely the baptism. So congratulations, Emma and Ava. Our daughter, Ava, she's into something that's kind of weird. I didn't ask her permission to share this, but I've talked about this before. And I bet some of you kids might recognize this. She likes slime. Did some of you guys make slime? You watch slime videos on YouTube? You create your own slime? It is a real movement. In fact, you can go to a toy store or Walmart or a dollar store. You will find little packages of slime that kids will play with, kind of like Silly Putty in the day, right? But they're cooler than Silly Putty. And there's all types of slime. You can go home and you can have like a chemistry set in your kitchen, and mom and dad are probably kind of like, what are you doing with the Tide? Don't eat it. But it's the making of slime, and there's been a real movement of young people getting a lot of joy out of slime. Well, this is a different slime. This isn't the kind of slime you necessarily would play with. This is forest slime. And doesn't it? It kind of looks like something you might make, Ava, right? Yeah. Well, this is interesting. So forest slime is not an animal, and it's not a plant, and it's not a fungus. It is something altogether different. It's actually considered an amoeba. It's a single cell, and yet it's huge. And what ends up happening with this forest slime is that it will connect with another bit of forest slime, and they will merge and become one. And so it's incredible. This is one, and it is many at the same time. And when those bits of slime all merge together, they become one complete entity, one created thing. And what's interesting about forest slime, the reason I'm talking about it, what got me kind of like, what is going on here, is that it has no brain, it has no nervous system, and yet it's intelligent. So a couple of years ago, this researcher was doing some work on forest slime, and she discovered a couple things. One is that forest slime really likes oatmeal. It just loves oatmeal. Anyone oatmeal in the morning? A little porridge? Yeah, some rolled oats, a little Red River, okay? So forest slime loves oatmeal. And so what the researchers did is if she sprinkled some oatmeal, the forest slime would kind of make its way over, get on top of the oatmeal, and just kind of absorb it. Oh, just loved oatmeal. But forest slime hates salt. It's its arch enemy. It's kryptonite. And so she would sprinkle some salt, and the forest slime would make its way over to the salt and get away from it as fast as it could. Now, this is moving very slow, so this is a reenactment. It's a little faster. But it would move away from salt, but it really liked the oatmeal. And then she had kind of an idea. She thought, I wonder how well it could find the oatmeal. And so she created this maze. And the forest slime, over time, would find the fastest way to get to the oatmeal. And at one point, she had like a little river with a bridge over it, and it would have to find its way through the maze, over the bridge, to get to the oatmeal. And the forest slime taught itself how to make its way to where the oatmeal was. Then she had a different idea. She thought, well, I wonder how much the forest slime really likes that oatmeal. And so she started taking bits of salt and sprinkling it on the bridge. And the forest slime would make its way, get to the bridge, touch the salt. But because there was oatmeal on the other side, even though it hated salt, salt burnt it, it would make its way through the salt to get to the oatmeal. Pretty incredible, right? I mean, no brain, no nervous system. But it gets freaky. Because then she has this forest slime that she's been working with now for months, and it knows its way through the path. It took it quite a while to learn its way how to get to the oatmeal and to take the penalty of the salt in order to get to the oatmeal. She goes and she introduces another forest slime. Now, these two slimes have never been together. And she puts the new slime in the maze. And this new slime is lost. It's got to start the process all over again. But then she takes the new slime and puts it next to the slime that she's been working with. And that forest slime just touches the new slime, just touches it. And you can't see anything, we don't know what happens, but when the two touch, immediately the new slime goes straight to the oatmeal, over the bridge through the salt. Incredible. So these slime have memory, they have some type of intelligence, and they can communicate. And we don't understand it at all. In fact, there's a university in New Hampshire that has been doing work on forest slime and giving it complex problems, looking at the underground systems of huge cities, trying to figure out what is the most efficient way to lay out the underground subway systems. And the forest slime can do it faster than people can figure out the most efficient routes in the undergrounds. It's incredible. So this university in New Hampshire has actually named forest slime a part of its faculty. That's crazy. But we don't understand it. It's a mystery. It's a mystery. And the world, even though here we are living in 2019, this world continues to be filled with mystery. And the job that God gave Adam there in the garden to go out and to discover and to name things, that's the job that continues to this day. We call it science. I know some of us have grown up in traditions that were very fearful of science, this false dichotomy that faith and science cannot come together. And I was so blessed. I grew up in First Charlottetown Baptist Church in Prince Edward Island. And in that congregation, there were university professors in math and in sciences and in computer science and the arts. And I never feared that my faith and science couldn't coexist because I had models of strong men and women who brought these two disciplines together, that you could bring your faith and not be afraid, because wherever we look into this world and see mystery and wonder, we are seeing the fingerprints of God. And so Job says, consider the creatures, the small things, the little things, because they know their Creator, and they point to their Creator. There's this interesting passage in Proverbs chapter 6. And it's kind of a throwaway line. It says, consider the ants, observe their ways. Now, in one sense, when Proverbs tells us to consider the ants, observe their ways, it's this metaphor for working hard and diligence. But in another sense, we're actually being told, take notice, slow down, pay attention, and see what God is doing in the small things in this world. So this morning, we're going to consider the ants. Now, this is probably something you never thought you'd do in church. That's okay. We're going to consider the ants. I know that ants have been a bit of a nuisance for many of us. Some of you have a hate relationship with ants. I get it. Living the last 13 years in Kenya, we had a constant battle with ants. The little sugar ants that would make their way into our kitchen. Those big army ants that would kind of be gnawing away at things in our home. I had a book. I was given a book at Christmas a year ago, and I had sat the book beside my bed, and it fell down between my bed and the wall. And when Eric and I were packing to move here, we pulled the bed out, and sometime I'll have to show you the picture, but a colony of ants decided to eat my book. All that left was the spine. They just devoured it. Ants! But there's, and of course, the most famous ant that we've encountered in Kenya is the safari ants. Many times we've been camping as a family, and someone spills a bit of hot chocolate by the campfire, and the safari ants move in, millions of them. And they're just the most delightful little things. They like to get up and get into dark places, and they bite. And you can't brush away a safari ant. You actually have to take off your clothes and pull them off. Oh, we love ants. Now, why does the Proverbs tell us to consider the ant? Why pay attention to the ant? Ants work hard. Ants, we have all the fable of the ant and the grasshopper. But then about 2 years ago, I was reading, and I came across the story of the Matabele ants in East Africa. And I want to show you a picture. These are Matabele ants. And Matabele ants are warriors. They're in a constant battle. And they're in a battle with termites. And so maybe you don't like ants. Termites are worse. These are the termites that we lived with in Kenya. And you can see they have these big pinchers on the front. And they can devour trees. They can come in and they build these monster termite hills. They're towers. Maybe we got to show a picture of the termite towers here. I mean, some of these are 12, 15 feet tall. They are very industrious. But then when the rains come, the rains will come and the water will start filling up these termite hills. These termites grow wings, and they take to flight. And if you're ever in East Africa during the rainy season, there's this phenomenon. It looks like snow. It's just literally millions of termites start flying into the air. And at nighttime, if there's a street light or a light outside your door, you will see them just flying around, fluttering wings like snow. And then in the morning, you wake up and you open your door, and there's ankle-deep wings because they land and wiggle until their wings pop off, and then they go off to start a new termite hill. But when they start the new termite hill, they'll dig a hole, and they'll go down with their queen, and they will start to produce eggs. And that's where the Matabella ants come in, because the Matabella ants are after these termites. They want their eggs. And so this constant battle is going on as the Matabella ants are going around trying to find termite hills, going in and trying to raid them. But the termites are not defenseless. As I showed you earlier, some of the termites are quite large, and they have these huge mandibles. And as the Matabella ants will make their way in and try to steal the eggs, the big soldier termites will come, and they'll grab a hold of the ants, and they'll start to swing them around and pull off an arm, pull off a leg. And there's this crazy battle. And then the ants will work together, and a group of ants will attack a big termite and take him down. It's this constant battle. It's like almost like a video game. It's like a cartoon to watch. In fact, if you Google termites versus ants on the internet, you will see these crazy battles going on, where these giant termites will be just tearing apart ants, and the ants will scurry and come back and rally and make their way in to steal the eggs. Well, why are we talking about this, right? This guy, his name is Eric T. Frank, and he is a doctor of microbiology at the University of Lausanne in Switzerland. And so Dr. Frank and I have been corresponding over the internet. We've been talking back and forth through email. And he was doing field work in Kenya and really was interested in the dynamics between these ants and these termites. And so he got these high-powered cameras, and he put them down in amongst the termite hills to watch what was going on. And what he discovered was unbelievable. You see, as these battles are taking place, and an ant will kind of make a charge and go in and try to get those eggs, that ant will come in contact with these big termites. And the termites will literally, pull off a limb or two. And if that ant loses one or two legs, it'll fall to the ground, and it sends out a distress signal. It lets out this chemical it's a pheromone. And the other ants around will smell that signal, and one or two of them will leave the battle. They will run back to the ant who's lost a leg or two, and they will pick him up, and they will carry him away from the battle to somewhere safe. And then they'll lay down the injured ant, and then they will start licking the stump where he lost a leg or two. And for an hour, these two ants will be like medics. They will be this triage, and they're identifying where the injuries are, and they lick the injuries for an hour. And after that hour's gone by, those two ants will turn and go back to the battle, and they will leave the injured ant to heal. And within 24 hours, that injured ant will be back up on 6 legs or whatever, 7 legs, whatever it has left. And at first it will stumble. It'll be like a kind of a baby calf or a baby horse just learning to walk. But within minutes, it will be running at full speed with the missing leg. And it goes right back to the battle, right back to the big war going on with the termites. Incredible. I mean, there are examples in the natural world where we have observed, a baby chimpanzee falls and another mother will pick it up and take care of it and take care of its injured head. Some of you know the story of Owen and Muse. Owen, this little baby hippopotamus that was washed down the Tana River during the tsunami a number of years ago. And it was nursed and cared for by a turtle, a tortoise called Muse. And that baby hippo bonds with this turtle, and they become like mother and child. It happens, but we don't notice it enough. That in the created world, God has created something in his creatures that we would take care of one another. We even heal one another. So Dr. Frank is doing work in the saliva of ants. And he's found a different kind of antibiotic, something we don't have in modern medicine. And so his research continues looking at how this might have use for us, something else, another type of antibiotic for human healing. But that's only the beginning of the story. Because as he continued to observe what these ants were doing, he had an idea. He noticed that some of the ants who would be very badly injured, they would lose 3 or 4 legs from the termites, or they'd get a giant gash, a rip on their side. They didn't send out the distress signal. They would lie there in the battlefield and they would just die. And Dr. Frank said, this is really weird. Why is it that some of the ants will call for help, but other ants, they just seem to give up and they just lie there and they die? And so Dr. Frank thought, I wonder if something has happened, they're injured, and they can't send out the distress signal. And so he was able to identify the pheromone, the distress signal. He kind of makes it into a little oil, and he sprinkles it on these injured ants, these ones that are terribly injured. And sure enough, when he spreads the distress signal on them, the fighter ants come back and they help the injured ant who's very badly injured. But that ant doesn't accept the help. In fact, these ants that are severely injured will fight back, they'll push away, they'll try to crawl away from the rescuers. Some of them will be picked up and the rescuers are trying to carry that ant to safety, and the ant will wiggle and wiggle until it falls out of their arms. And he will fight until the rescuers will leave him alone. And they go back to the battle, and he dies. What Dr. Frank discovered is that these ants, recognizing that they're so badly injured, are trying to, for the good of their colony, the good of their family, they are sacrificing themselves. And they're saying, I don't need to be rescued. Use your energy, use your life, use all the good that you have in you to take care of the rest. Leave me behind. They're sacrificing themselves for the greater good of their family. And this is an ant. Those nasty little ants that I just want to crush. And yet, the Proverbs say, consider the ants. Pay attention. Because there are wonderful and amazing things going on in the world around us. And they point to a creator. They point to a God who brings himself into his creation and reveals his character in the heavens and in the earth and the animals and in the slime and in all the things that God has made. God reveals himself. Dr. Frank is continuing his research. And this week we were talking, and he is now moving his research into Ecuador, into Latin America. And what's exciting for me is to think that there are people who are dedicating their lives to keep looking, to keep discovering. Because there's more for us to discover. There's more for us to see. There's more for us to realize about the creation that God has made than we can even imagine. John tells us, as Jesus was with his disciples, he said, "My command is this, that you love each other as I have loved you. For greater love is no one than this, than one willing to lay down their life for their friends. And you are my friends, if you do what I commanded." God has created us to live in a relationship with him and with one another and with this world that he has made. We are to be stewards, caretakers, people who pay attention to the world that God has made. And even in the brokenness and the hurt of this world, even in the brokenness and the hurt of this life, God is moving, and God is drawing us to himself and drawing all people to the life that God created us to live in Jesus Christ. The book of Romans tells us, as the Apostle Paul spoke about, as we were talking last Sunday, since the creation of this world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power, his divine nature have been clearly seen and are being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. God's fingerprints are all around us. And so, when we were little kids, and maybe those are here this morning who are closer to their birth than some of us are, but since all of us, and it doesn't matter what your age is, since we were born in this world, we have all had a desire to play. We've all been born with the desire to explore and to discover, a desire to laugh, a desire to build, a desire to be hold, to be held and to hold, to love and to be loved. And these things that God puts in us, they are fingerprints of God. They are echoes of God's character. And whenever we see something good in this world, that is a gift of God. It is something that God has left for us. So may each of us step into this new day. May each of us step into this summer that we have before us with a sense of childlike wonder, with a faith to see what God is doing, and the courage to share. Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, I thank you this morning for everyone who's here today and the desire that you have, Lord, for us to recognize you, to see you, and to have a relationship with you. You are the creator, the sustainer, the author of life. And God, we thank you that you pay attention to every detail of your creation, that every petal and every flower was put there with your own intention. That, Lord, every insect, every little wing, the sparkle in every child's eye, the note of every laugh, Lord, comes ultimately from you. Forgive us, Lord, for our dullness. Forgive us, Lord, that we take so much of this world for granted. Forgive us, Lord, for the times we have lost that sense of wonder. Forgive us for that sense that some of us have that we're too busy to pay attention. Forgive us, Lord, for our failure to be thankful. Help us to consider the little things, the small things, the things that have worth and meaning. And give us the courage to go beyond our own self-interest, to live for you, to be able to live for others for their good, that we might be people close to your heart. Dear Jesus, we pray this in your holy name. Amen.